interesting. Hey guys, so we're over here at the 4 Art Space, and I'm talking to Jason Michael West.
Hey.
And so we're going to talk about today is because Jason is also a curator. I, of course, have been a curator for 18 years. How long have you been curating?
Oh, God, I think it's been 5 or 6 years.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of things, I always have conversations. I mean, we've talked about this subject 1,000,000,001 times over the years. And so today what we're going to really discuss is, as curators, our joy and frustrations about curating. So I'm going to let you go first, since you're relatively a newbie in the curating world. What really inspired you to curate? Like, what were some of the things that? Oh, well. I feel kind of.
Honestly, yeah, you're part of it. One of the big things was seeing, like, one of my first art shows ever. Should I look at the camera? Look at you? Or
we can. It's open to interpretation.
So
this is performance art here.
So one of the first ever shows, the first gallery show I ever did was here, and seeing how you took me and other artists on wing and just going, hey, nudging people in the right direction. Inspired me to go, I could do this, this is kind of cool. And I got to a point where it was like
she makes that look easy.
Yeah, she makes that look real easy, So I got to a point where I was just like, all right, let's do this. And I started this pop-up art show at a gastropub in Brookfield, Illinois. And I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I ended up getting some artists that this was their first show, and some of them have gone on to continue to do art. And that's the big inspiration of why I wanted to start curating, is because wow, I can give these people a voice and watch them flourish into this professional artist, or at the very least beyond hobby. So honestly, that's what inspired me to start. What about you, Robin Rios? What inspired you to start?
Well, when I started the gallery in 2003, I was surrounded by some of the most amazing Chicago artists. I mean, amazing. And the fact that they were showing in my space was just mind-blowing. So I think they all inspired me. They helped me to think outside the box. I know they don't realize how much they helped me to grow as not only a gallery owner, an artist, and a curator, because I always felt like, life was limitless. We limit ourselves. When you have an opportunity to think outside the box and enjoy your creative spirit, what better way to do that than to create these really interesting and thought-provoking shows? So I really started thinking, about these shows, and not just doing, this is a nudes show, or this is a sculpture show, or, but really thinking about, a conceptual plan, that didn't necessarily limit the artist unless they felt limited. I don't know. I'm sure some of them did feel limited. But this was really to push artists to just play and to think outside the box and try something new that maybe they wanted to try for a long time but didn't. I can tell you that these shows drew in hundreds of people every time I, come up with a show. And artists were excited to do them.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, I haven't drawn in a while, or I haven't sculpted in a while, or I've never used this, medium. And that alone was my joy, to see artists completely, opening themselves up for a challenge, creative challenge, You'd get the odd people who would email me, and they made a specific, plan to email me and let me know that they were discluded because they only do large paintings, or they only do flowers, or I'm like, well, you only do that, and that's fine. But this show is about whatever. This is a small works show, specifically for small works. If you wanted to create something small and be part of the show, you are completely welcome. But it's not, you're discluding yourself. You could try, you could make a little piece, but they choose not to, and that's fine. I'm not judging them, but to single it out like as if I'm doing something wrong or bad by creating these shows, and they are limiting, but at the same time it isn't limiting to a creative person. If you're an artist, you're creative, and you're always thinking about new ways, new mediums, new this or new that. But if you limit yourself to this just one thing, then you have to already expect that you're not going to be in a lot of different shows, not just mine.
Yeah. And do you find that a lot of artists tend to put that limit on themselves? Not just the I only do flowers, but even if someone goes into an art show that has a theme, do you find that a lot of artists very much just keep into their little hole?
I think a lot of them do, because it's a comfort zone. It's what they feel good at. They don't want to fail. And to me, there's no failure. I've never, I've mentored artists. I've mentored, people who are going into their own business to open a gallery or just curate pop-up shows or whatever. And there's no failure. There's only learning. You only learn.
Or through failure you learn,
right,
depending on how you word it. Yeah.
It's not failure.
Yeah.
It's not a fail. We're not perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. No. But but what I'm saying is that you grow from experience. And if you're only going to allow yourself to experience that bubble of information, that's nobody's fault but your own.
Yeah.
I can't do anything with that. Only you can. Only you can burst out and just try new things and play and enjoy your artist life. However you want to do it. But don't put it off on me because you want to participate in my shows, but you are too afraid to create something small, or you're too afraid to try this specific concept of art or think about it. Most of the concepts that I come up with for my shows really is open-ended. Like we did the Spinach show, which was creating on 12-inch vinyl records. And it was a whole no holds barred.
Yeah,
you
can
create anything on them. Some of the other shows were maybe just a little bit more thought-provoking, but again, open-minded to how you interpret it. There was one show that popped up on my Facebook page, as your memories.
Yeah.
And it was the Shattered Mirror show. Now, this was before you came around, but I came up with this show, which was really about looking beyond the surface.
Yeah.
That whole proverbial looking in a mirror type of thing at yourself. But it was per the artist interpretation. I also did a show that was about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, oddly enough. Knock on wood these days, but this was years ago. And the artist was like, oh my God, what do I do? I had photographers, I had sculptors, I had oil painters, acrylic painters, illustrators, you name it. And I said, listen, don't limit yourself to this sort of strict idea of what the four horsemen are.
Yeah.
Interpret that, their story, into your photography, into your digital work, into your, whether it's color, it represents color. You know what I mean? That represents each of the horsemen. I really had to, with that show, I have to tell you, I had to handhold a lot of artists because they just couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, look, you do digital art. You do these abstract pieces. Why can't you take the colors of each horseman and incorporate it into this, create the pattern based on how that particular horseman is represented? You know what I mean? And they were like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I never would have thought about it. And I'm thinking to myself, this is part of the frustration, people. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Be creative. I'm giving you an opportunity to think completely outside of the box, play, enjoy, experiment. But I can tell you over the years that I have never felt so like perplexed when it comes to giving these artists the freedom to be free. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I think this is just something I've actually thought about a lot with our current state of everything. I think a lot of people need that guidance, you know, of where they should go with, like, you know, like say their art, or even, you know, like music or stuff like that. You know, like you join a band, you know, you're the new person in the band. Everyone's like, play the bass like this. Oh, okay, cool. And then you kind of start to find your voice, and you start going, oh, I'm going to do this. How do you feel about that? And I think, you know, like someone like the let's say the abstract person, you know, they may have needed that guidance to find their voice. You know, it's like there's a lot of projects that I work on that, you know, I look at and I send a picture to like someone and go, what do you think, green or red? You know, like type of deal, you know, and, you know, one person will say green, one person will say red, and I just kind of look at it and, okay, cool, you know, and even like, you know, the infancy of like my art career, like, you know, I would even come to you sometimes with like, hey, what do you think of this? And you'd say something, and I'd be like, okay, cool. And I start to find that voice. So I think a lot of times with those kind of curated with a specific topic, like people don't know what to do with their style in that topic. You know, like the Fantastic Feline show that I curated, I had a couple of people send me a message like, well, what do I do with cats? You know, I'm like, whatever you want, man. Like, you know, like draw a cat like farting on a face, or, you know, draw a cat like, you know, like you do photography, take a picture of a cat, you know, and do some cool stuff with it, you know. And some people don't have their voice yet, so like that little bit of guidance helps them, you know. And that goes back to like the inspiration of, you know, like why it was started, you know, curating is, you know, you give that guidance, and like all of a sudden you have, you know, someone that's, you know, their art career is now flourishing, or they incorporated their art career into like food or whatever.
Absolutely.
So like, you know, it's frustrating, but at the same time, like it's part of like the wonderful journey of like seeing these artists, you know, turn into what they should be.
But that was my mindset, you know, because like I said, you know, I opened the gallery right after art school. I'd never felt so free in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it was no holds barred, you know, and it was my journey through, you know, over the years that I began to see this sort of really, you know, boxed up type mentality. And through these shows, it was like, look, I want you to jump right out of the box. I want you to just play, just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And I've always told artists, I'm like, whether you go back, you know, you take a break and you go back to painting those flowers, because you love flowers, you love painting them. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is take a break you want to be part of the show, you're welcome to. You know, you just got to follow the parameters of the exhibition. There's no rule really a lot of times to their creative prowess, but it's just their sort of, they shut down. But I can tell you, just like what you were saying, once you have opened that door and they jump out of the box and they tried something different for the first time in maybe 30 years, 20 years, I mean, it's like their joy, their joy in their face. They're like a kid in a candy store. They're like, oh my God, I had so much fun creating that. But it's the process of moving them from here to there is sometimes such a frustrating thing.
Yeah.
I don't mind helping you. But when you fight me all the way to the end, it's a little extra for some folks. I mean, because honestly, you know, I've come up with the concept, I've done all the writing of the show, I've put the call out for artists, I've written up the contracts, I have to post on social media, I have to send out an e-blast, I have to, you know, I've got 101 things to do from point A to Z to prepare for this show. And all the extra time that I could possibly muster is giving to those who need that extra help. And that's fine. I have no problem whatsoever. That's part of the mentoring. It's the whole part of why I'm doing the shows in the first place. But what I'm saying is, you know, just that from the beginning to then, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've learned along the way also to, you know, to deal with it. But my always advice is never close yourself off from trying something new, because when you go back to painting those flowers, all of a sudden you see them in a different way.
Oh yeah.
You look at it in a different way. You've totally opened up a whole new set of senses, you know, toward creativity. And, you know, I've definitely seen a lot of grumpy artists along my journey, and I never really understood. I never really understood why they were so grumpy. You know.
Yeah.
I've also been around really creative people who did basically every medium known to artists, and that's how I learned different mediums along the way. So. You know, I think for me, the biggest joy is coming up with the show, preparing for the show, hanging the show.
Yeah, just seeing that vision. That in itself is like a artwork. Yes. You know, like figuring out painting or drawing or, you know, Photoshop stuff.
Seeing the artists.
Yeah.
Because some of the artists, you know, I don't see until they drop off their work and meet them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And them saying, you know what, thank you so much. I've never done anything like this before, and I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, that right there is like huge.
Yeah.
You know, when you've worked so hard to create this show, you've got these artists coming in and they are so excited. And that pumps you up. And to see the joy in their face, that's, nobody can pay you any kind of money for that. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, some of the frustrations is the excessive hand-holding to get to point A, point B. And believe me when I say, when you do that, I guess at the end, when that person finally realizes that they were perfectly capable all along, then I'm filled with joy. Yeah. Right?
If they realize that. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I mean, there are some that won't ever, you know, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying, as a curator, it's frustrating.
Yeah. If it gets to be too much, a lot of times those people, I'll give them like one or two shows, and then I'm just like, you're not in my shows anymore because I don't have the time for you. Yeah. You know, because I got my own art stuff. I got my life.
Well, and you know, because when I was preaching all that to you and you did the fantastic felines, I had to say that you had basically every scenario of artists that I've had to deal with over the years in that one show. Yeah, it was,
and then add in the pandemic, and I was like, well, I have to build a store now. You know? It was frustrating as fuck. So.
So, I mean, and then, you know, I think part of, and you know, a lot of things, guys, that we're going to be talking about here is, you know, these are our experiences going forward. And, you know, you will agree or you'll disagree, and that's fine. But we're speaking to you because, you know, like myself, I've been doing this for 18 years. Jason has been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. And, you know, we've dealt with a lot of things. And what we're hoping by this discussion is that the artists learn how to be better, how to, you know, enjoy their artist life, and how to not exclude yourself. I mean, it's up to you whether you know, submit to a show or not. But if you feel like, well, I don't really do that, well, you know, why not try it? Why not? It's, you know, it's great. And if you decide at the end, you know, I don't want to submit this, then that's on you. But I think it's a growing experience.
Yeah.
You know, I think too, you can attest to this, I think, you know, another frustration for me as a curator is artists not being, not communicating with me, being late, and I have to reach out to you and be like, where's your art? Not following the simple instructions, like sign your work, put the title on the back, put your, you know, 3M Velcro strips, or, you know,
any sort of hanging device that seems to be like the worst thing for artists to do.
Right.
They're like,
and you bullet point it so that it's very simple to follow. Here's what you need to do at the end, you know.
And I still, like, I've kind of stepped back from curating over the past like year and a half or 2 years or whatever, but I still curate this like just the Artist of the Month thing at a gastropub. And even that, like, I'll send them like an email, like, be sure to have a hanger, you know, this is the hook, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It it can hook into this, you know, like videos and stuff like that. And they come and they're like, I need a hook. And I'm like, all right, bud. I mean, I end up, you know, it's something that I'm sure you've done too. And like, I end up just buying like extra like sawtooth things, just hammer it on the back of your thing. You fucked up. All right, cool. Here, it's on the wall now, you know. And
but it's extra work.
It's extra work, and a lot of times it's thankless, and, you know, but at the same time, you know, it's I mean, there's that stereotype of artists being flighty and, you know, stuff like that, and lazy, and it's not 100% true, but there are some, just like any other, like, you know.
I hear every excuse in a book. You know, well, that's the artist's way. I'm like, you know what? You know, if we all sat back and, you know, lounged on our excuses in life, we wouldn't accomplish one thing. I don't expect anybody to be as organized as I am. I am a fluke of life, you know, and I think because I also worked in the corporate world, I had to be organized, you know.
I had the same thing too.
You know, you know, I understand, and I don't expect them to be that organized, and that's why I go above and beyond. Like you said, I send follow-ups. I make sure they have pictures of everything that they need to do. You know, I make sure that I am not wordy at all, because I know people don't like to read. But if you can't even follow simple checklist, it's very frustrating for me, because I've already worked 100 hours on preparing for this show, and now I've worked for one artist another extra 20 hours. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but that's what it feels like when you've already done all of this work. And, you know, and it's not just one artist, and I know they all think that they're the one artist. My shows incorporated dozens of artists. So when you have even 5 of those artists that take up that extra time, it's overwhelming, and it's almost like you're like, why am I doing this? You know, why am I beating myself up? You know, but at the end of the day, then the joy comes back, because why? We come together, we're enjoying the show. The show was a big success. But then you have the artist do that again for the next show and the next show and the next show, and you become, you're like, you know what? If you can't follow these directions, I don't want you in the next show. I don't care how great your art is, because I've got to work extra, and really, it's not fair to me.
Yeah. To get back to like the stereotype thing and like, oh, it's just the artist way. Like one of the things that I try to like kind of basically just tell anyone, and how I live my life, is like, be against the stereotype. Like, why do you want to just be in that, like be against that stereotype? Like, you don't have to be like organized like you, or like, organized like me, but like, don't be that like, oh, I'm just an artist and I'm, gonna bleh, type of deal. Like, go against stereotype. And just, I don't know.
Just
I guess
be mindful. If anything else, and if you
be courteous.
Mindful and courteous and respectful of the curator or gallery owner, whatever's time and efforts. They're trying to put the best show together for everybody.
Yeah.
And, communication is key. I can tell you a number of times I've had to email artists 100 times. Well, not 100. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but at least 3 or 4 times, and say, hello, are you dropping off a piece of art? And then I would get to a point, well, you are no longer in the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for applying, but I can't wait any longer to put the show together,
Yeah, for like one person. One of the things, and I know like a lot of artists have a background in like food industry and stuff like that, but like, so like one of the ways that I look at it is like you're setting up a banquet, and setting up a banquet and having, doing the whole banquet service and making it look nice. That's curating. But you have all the other pieces, like the other servers, you have the family that's like, yelling at you from here and there, one server not, communicating and all that kind of stuff. That's essentially what art gallery or pop-up or whatever, curation is like, because you have 9 million things that you got to put together and make it look right. But you have, Joe Schmo, continually going outside to smoke a cigarette, and then like the main person that is getting frustrated because nothing's looking right, because no one's communicating. Once it gets all put together, that's where it's like, oh, all the frustration was worth it. It's like Joe Schmo smoked a cigarette, but he's still got set up the tea, or whatever, Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it, because I, 30 plus years of restaurant experience. So like everything is an analogy for that, or baseball. So,
I've always been very honest with artists, like when it gets to a point, I'm like, you're making my work very difficult.
Yeah.
And, if you would just communicate with me at all times and let me know where you're at. I've bend and folded for artists,
Yeah.
I've accepted late work. I've gone above and beyond while everybody else is either going above or below.
Yeah.
And that is part of what I feel is important. Number one, be courteous, be respectful, read the contract. And that's just not negotiable. You have no idea what you're getting into when you submit shows if you don't read the contract.
Yeah,
I can tell you
there's a possibility that you could be like giving up your rights to your art. You have to read that contract.
You really have to read it through. If
Yeah.
you don't, I grew up with dyslexia, so believe me when I tell you, reading isn't necessarily my favorite thing. So what I have to do is I have to sit quietly. I have a marker, highlighter, and I highlight the very important things, and I go sentence by sentence by sentence, make sure that I understand what this means. If you don't understand certain aspects, put a little dot, call the curator and say, listen, I didn't understand what this means. Can you, explain, or email them, whatever. Everybody will be happy to help you. It's just that if you're not communicating and then you're surprised that they're taking 60%
Yeah.
commission. That's on you, because every contract is different. Some are very long, and you worked all this time on a piece, and because, like we just talked about earlier, you forgot X, Y, and Z. You get there to drop off your art, they say, sorry, we are not accepting that.
Or you didn't like look at the dimensions, because
Right.
a lot of times I've had people bring like a piece of art that's like the size of the wall behind me for like a tiny little pop-up show. I'm like, well, you want to just have that one piece of art because I sent you the freaking dimensions for this tiny little pop-up show. So it's like, read the contract. Always read the contract. Even outside of art, read the contract.
Right. I mean, it's on you. And I mean, there was times that, I had to say, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. I mean, it's gone beyond the parameters. A lot of my small work shows were gridded, and you only had a certain amount of space within that grid, and it's allotted for each artist submission. And if you decided you were going to create something bigger than what you were allowed, I'm sorry, I couldn't make an accommodation for it. So that's also part of the frustrations. And I have to say, at the end, when I see like on Facebook these memories of the shows that I did over the past, they do bring me joy thinking about them. And I was like, wow, that was such a great show. So those are really awesome memories. And I know that they're awesome memories for the artists that were involved. And I think, having this conversation about the frustrations is, like I said, mainly to help you guys understand that, you keeping up on your end is what helps make the show successful. Many of you already do that, but those of you who think that, well, I don't feel like reading it, or I don't feel like following the directions or whatever, know that you will be denied from the shows. Because I can tell you today, curators are very ruthless, and they draw the line in the sand, and they'll tell you right off the bat, sorry, no can do.
I think one of the other big things is if you actually want to like move forward with your art career, and it's not just like a hobby or something you do on the side because you're retired or divorced or something. Don't know why I use that as an example, but but I mean, if you actually want to move forward with your art career, the best thing to do is like go, if you're in a show, read the contract, follow what the contract says. You're going to get in other shows. Curators talk to one another.
Absolutely.
You see this right here. So like, I have a list, for shows that there's people I will never let in my show because of these things, that are repeatedly done. So if you want to move forward and be successful with your art career, even if you're not doing gallery shows, if you're just doing like pop-up shows and vendor events, always.
It's all a part, B. I mean,
just show up on time. Follow the rules.
You're your own, artist business. And like you said, whether you're, and I tell artists this all the time, whether you're hanging your work in your studio, at a show somewhere, you're not going to show up right in the middle of the show and expect to, put your work up. The people who organize the show going to look at you like you're crazy. So be mindful and practice, and communicate with the curator. A lot of times they will be a little adjusting to what's going on. I understand things come up, but if you're not communicating that, we don't know. We just know that you are late, or that we haven't heard from you, or whatever. It's
like one of the things that I've learned from a lot of people in my my personal art career, is I look at, and this sucks for a lot of artists to think this way, but I look at myself as a business. Say you go to, the mom and pop shop, and they're late on, you order a burger and it takes an hour or two for a burger. You're not going to go back there. You're not going to recommend it. All that kind of stuff. So as an artist, you're going into your gallery, your vendor event, your pop-up show or brewery or whatever you're doing. If you show up on time, get everything, you got everything good, guess what? They're going to ask you to do another event. They're going to talk to other people. You're going to get more, opportunities, and
opportunities nowadays is becoming few far in between.
Exactly.
So you definitely don't want to get a black ball.
Right.
Or what is it called? Is it blackballing?
We're just going to say black ball.
Okay.
Yeah. Blue ball.
But anyways.
Anyway.
We might edit that out. No. Well, I mean,
we've been demonetized.
Line, right. That's it. Our channel's gonna be closed down for good.
Yep.
But anyways, I hope you guys learned something from this. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. We're not looking for any hateful comments or, we don't know what we're talking about or whatever. We combined have over 20 years experience in this industry, and we're only coming at you as real and as raw as we possibly can. For sure. So, there will be some more interviews coming up with other curators, and, they'll be able to you'll be able to get their perspective as well. So we can agree to disagree, or we can agree to agree, or whatever. It's neither here nor there, but we're going to share our experience with everybody as we've experienced it, and they come with positives and negatives.
Yeah.
That's really, how it is. So, thanks, Jason, for sitting here and jibber-jabbering with me.
Of course.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys, and please subscribe. And if you like our videos, give us a like.
Click, share.
And share. So talk to you soon. Take care.